We also have a special guest here. Mr. Keith Stovall, one of our wonderful professors here, is going to act as a moderator. All right, and his role, of course, is to kind of keep us on task and help you with questions. I want you to feel comfortable. A salon only works if there's dialogue back and forth. So having said that, I'll introduce the panel today. Mr. Patton Crane, studying.
I love you.
Yeah, we love to. Young Patton, as I call him, is studying history at the University of Mississippi in Oxford. The Lord Protector, Mr. Nathan Runnels.
Take it all.
I'm moderator, so
I didn't think to get security,
I was
but
actually reading the other day, and in actual Salons and French Enlightenment, criticism, it was only allowed for a constructive argument, and all like bashing and bad mouthing was strictly frowned upon. So
Good thing we're not French, right?
yeah.
Quiet.
It's just like,
you will be forcibly ejected, though, if we keep this silly. So let's try to. All right. But Nathan is studying. What are you studying? Basket weaving? Something? I forget.
yeah.
Playing football at the University of. No, he's also a history major. And then we have a special guest, and I apologize for not having him. He got together with me late, but I was very excited to have him, Mr. Logan Cap. I think all three of these students went through a transition here and grew from an experience. Many of us played a role in that, and I thank all the instructors and administrators who have come. But they've grown since that time, and it's really fun to see this transition. So, but Keith, I'll kind of turn it over to you and let you handle from there, and
Okay.
I'm going to go sit back and enjoy.
good deal. We're going to open the floor to everybody else, but I figured it would be appropriate just to give a little chance for you guys. I guess an open-ended question that we're probably all interested in is tell us from Wesson to Oxford and Logan Cap and Hattiesburg. So tell us about that transition. Give us a little narrative. Go ahead, Pat.
Mine was, my transition was tough. I've always been a homebody, and I think my biggest mistake, and some advice that I would give to anyone going to Hattiesburg or Oxford, wherever, go up at least a week early to wherever you're going to live. Go up and just get adjusted to it. I went up Sunday night before my Monday morning class, and by Tuesday I was like, oh my gosh. You know, can't do this, but stuck it out, got a lot better. So I would say go up and try to get adjusted. Don't just go to football games and things like that. Go up during an academic day, observe, walk around, act like you're just a student. Other than that, there's a lot of people in the same boat that you are, and that's what I had to remind myself. Got out and met people in my classes and realized that I was not alone. You try to put on a tough facade when you go to class and things like that, but you won't be alone. So I would say that's the biggest thing. Get up there wherever you're going, get comfortable before you start school, so you don't have to try to make that part of the transition while you're trying to get used to your classes at the new university as well.
I would say for me was the actual, Mr. Stovall knows, the reading, because I'm used to reading, and that's the thing y'all have to realize. Y'all have to read. I've read this book. This is one of my textbooks about 3 times. You could go through and see all the highlighted pages and things like that, and having to come into class and prepare for that, because each week we had this is from my upper level classes, which, if y'all continue, y'all will get that far. But you go into the discussion and you have to know not only what was in the past lectures, but also what was in the books, and apply that to the lectures. They're not going to teach what's in the books. They're going to riff off of that, and then you tie it into what you've read. I would say that was about, as far as class-wise, the reading was the hardest part.
For me, the hardest part was the fact that I was woefully underprepared, very much like I am in every other aspect of my life. Because I've lived in Wesson literally for every year of my life, so about 20 years now. I went to high school here, grew up here, got to know everybody here, had friends, family. Everybody that I knew was in Wesson. And it was just sort of this strange, crazy concept that one day I had to get out. I just had to leave. I had to take charge of my educational career and just go for it. I mean, and that's my advice to everybody in this room, even the people up here, is don't get that idea in your head that there are people above you who you have to follow every single guideline they give you. It's your future, it's your career, and those are your choices. So that's really the only advice that I can give you right now. So.
Okay. For the next question, I see you have your notebooks.
Oh, yes.
Could you show them your notebooks? Just for a
The
second?
reason I brought these is not as a prop, but somebody, you here on the end. I just wanted to bring these to show you, like, you know, what's expected in a class. Cody? Yeah. It's just, that's for 2 of my classes, and just on average, you'd get about, I got about somewhere between 6 and 8 pages each lecture. So you have to take notes or you will not pass the class.
I thought Shu had a lot of notes in his class.
Yeah. And they don't give you, Schufeld's very kind about giving you PowerPoints that are creative. So are you. But it's unimaginative PowerPoints. It's literally made by a grad student in so many hours. You know, it's not, the PowerPoints will not give you the answers. Going to class and taking notes gives you the main course material.
And I had, I took a 300 level class, a U.S. history class between World War I and 1945. And professor came in, and when he started the lecture, he had a PowerPoint, and it had what they call identifiers on it. It's just one word. It may be Great Britain or Doughboys or FDIC, whatever, you know, whatever you're talking about that day. It's just got that, and then he elaborates on it. And he said the first day of class, if you miss class, you miss notes. He said you either have to get with someone. He said if you come up and ask me the next day what you missed in class, I'm going to tell you stuff. And, so don't miss class. That's very important.
To elaborate on that, as far as the readings, Andrew, you have that notebook on the front of it. It has taped on the inside folder. It has taped like what you have to read for each week to pass, to do good for that week. And we're talking about 2 chapters a week, which is about 60 pages plus whatever else she hands you in class. I mean, you might be reading 2 chapters a week plus 100 extra pages of whatever's handed out or put online
in one class.
In one class for 1 week.
So you gave me one time in my office the estimated number of pages that you're responsible for every week. So give that estimate.
I'd say somewhere between 175 and 200.
Right.
And then having to know that.
I'm just taking some notes here on my phone, and the words that come to mind: feeling overwhelmed and shell-shocked. Patton, you emphasized showing up as a critical thinker, Nathan, and you mentioned kind of this new environment, just overwhelmed by a new environment. And I want us to go back to each of those themes, but specifically feeling shell-shocked in terms of the reading. How did you have to change how you were reading?
Glance over it, and if you'll see in this book especially, where I have whole sections highlighted, where I find what's interesting or just the gist of the chapter or that theme. It's the way this is written like a great textbook, but without really any pictures. Like you'll have the beginning of the chapter, and then just subsections on him just riffing on these ideas. and just highlighting that, and then going back, before your quizzes or before discussions, and then looking at that, internalizing it, and you'll see all over my notes, you'll have like these post-it notes, where I'm going back and taking what's in the book and applying that to the notes. I remember one time I spent, an entire weekend just reading in two chapters for a class, and I just couldn't do that anymore. So you have to learn how to read smart.
Okay, one of you guys like to tell us about the writing. We talked about reading, and I want to come back to your concept of showing up as a critical thinker. So maybe Patton or Logan, you could tell us about writing. How is your writing? Were you prepared? How has it had to change, etc.?
Well, I may be a little bit more able to answer this because for the first semester that I was at USM, I was a journalism major, and journalism majors have to write a lot. And it's kind of a strange, it's kind of a miscommunication, I guess, on my brain's part, because I took the English classes here and I was like, oh, well, this is all I'll ever need to know. But you really need to learn how each one of your instructors is gonna want you to write, because you're taught MLA all day, every day while you're at Co-Lin, while you're in high school. But there's some people who want it Chicago style. They want it, APA. Any type of the million different ways you can write a paper, and you just have to get to know your teacher and just get to talk to them and just kind of connect with them on a personal level. And I think that in a myriad of different ways that will help you throughout your college career, and especially when it comes down to writing and presenting and those kinds of things.
Before I move on, real quick, USM has a writing center. Ole Miss has a writing
Yes.
center. So as you talk, maybe you can tell us what you've learned personally, but also tell us about the resources available at the four-year environment and how you can avail yourself of those.
I did not trust the writing center at first. I said, well, they're just gonna throw you in, throw you out, and that's gonna be it. So I made an appointment and went, and it was great. I mean, they asked me, what do you want me to help you with? And I said grammar. I said, punctuation, things like that. If I need to change a word, and they'd go there, and it was so much easier than trying to read it yourself or whatever. I mean, they sit down and in a short amount of time, they're done. They've helped you and given you tips on your paper. Writing in general, I had multiple papers up there. One class, my only grades were papers and a final. And I had 4 papers, 4 different books to read. And I had, it's like Logan said, I had to learn what my teachers wanted. And that takes time, but once you get it, I love to write. I love to just sit down at my computer and type, because that's when you truly understand your material, is when you can go from reading it in a book or hearing it in a lecture to putting it down in a comprehensive way on paper. Not a regurgitation, but just really understanding that material, and that's what will get you a good grade in your writing. Research papers, Logan mentioned different styles that different teachers wanted. I had a 2,000-word research paper for an African American history class I took, and it was tough. I had to have multiple sources, but the toughest thing for me was Chicago style. Never done Chicago style before. Knew what a footnote was, never done one. It took me 30 minutes to figure out how to do a footnote on my computer. And I consider myself to be sort of tech savvy anyway. So anything that you could look at with that, different writing styles would help as well.
That really helps, like with the writing style. Like if you don't know the format, going to the writing center, and plus, for every paper that I wrote, I would go to the professor and see, like, am I going in the right direction? Like, that was one of the hardest deals, is not seeing my professors as like some kind of emotionless android. like he could crush me with his mind. And I went to the writing center for every paper I wrote, and I know you called me one night asking how it was, but you use that as a resource and use that time wisely. Like, also go to the professor, figure out if you're using the information in the right way, or if your points make sense, or if you're using, I know we had to use our mediums for one of my classes, for my German history class. The medium changed with each paper, so you'd go like actual articles written in the 1700s to a romantic novel written in the 19th century to a movie, and then how to write on each of those mediums. Also, what else? Oh, yeah, I saw with my papers, like my grade for this one class, my grade kept improving for each one. So it went from like a B- to a B+ to an A-. So it took me 3 different papers to figure out what exactly my professor wanted. If I would have spent more time in his office asking questions, figuring out what he wanted. And as far as he said that all you had was papers and finals, for my upper level German history course, I had 3 papers, each 20% each, a final, and then you had the in-class participation and your quizzes, meaning that the in-class stuff counted for like 25% of your grade. So if you missed all these quizzes or you didn't show up for discussion, that's 25% of your grade cut in half.
I never actually had a run-in with the Writing Center at USM. I've got friends who have. They said that it really helped them through. But the way that I got used to writing different styles of papers was I went to one of my teachers, my Introduction to Media Writing professor, Miss Williams, and I would just visit her during her office hours, and I would just be like, on my knees begging, like, how do I do this? How do I cite a different source? Or how do I go about doing this thing? And that's another huge piece of advice I can give you is don't be afraid of your teacher's office hours. I mean, they're just like us. They're bored. They want somebody to talk to. Schufelt plays with toy soldiers in his office hours just all day. And,
Appreciate that.
So just stop in, talk to your professors, and just ask them for help, because I can't think of a situation where a professor is just going to be like, no, get out, because they're there to help you pass.
Okay, I want you guys to talk about the community college. So I want you guys to be candid. I want you guys to tell us how the community college best helped you, and maybe if there's something that maybe we need to take a look at in terms of improving students.
Everybody that I talk to, whether it's a younger student or an adult that I know that has a child in high school, I tell them the best decision I ever made was to go to Co-Lin, because through Shu's class, Mr. Stovall's class, my English classes, I learned how to write. That was the biggest thing that I can tell that really helped me through this first semester. Is I didn't get up there and was shocked. I mean, if I knew how to write, and that helped a lot. As far as a negative, I would say I found that some teachers here will they will give you instructions and tell you to write on this certain thing, or do this certain thing, or do a paper on this topic. You can kind of beat around the bush and get away with a few things and still come out with an A or a B on the paper or the assignment. It's not how it is up there, and I quickly found that out. So I wound up, if I had a 4-part discussion question, I had to go through, and every single question, no matter what it was, I I had to go through every single part and do one part at a time. That way I figured out, I made sure I had every little detail. But if you buy into the process here, I think it will help you a lot, especially with your writing. Because as you know, Nathan has said and Logan has said, you have to know how to write if you're especially going into the field that we're in.
Me next? Okay. For one of my scholarships that I have, this is on the university's part. I have to participate in it's a non-accredited course, but what we're doing is we're designing a course to help soften that transition in between community college and four-year institution. To kind of help soften that blow. And it's just throwing that out there on the university's part. But for here, I would say the biggest plus was just the office hours, going to the professor and them actually being there. Throwing back, I went to one of my professor's office hours up there and she was playing darts. So you get an idea.
Next toy soldier seem almost academic.
She told me it was a physics project, but I didn't buy that. Yeah, but how many of y'all recognize these things? Yeah. This is a primary mode of testing for all my classes. Even in my introduction stuff, it was based like your test. This was my philosophy course. Mm-hmm. It was multiple choice, and then you had like essay question, then this lengthy discussion question, and they were graded rather hard. They don't joke around when it comes to writing. Can you refresh me on the question again? I kind of
Yeah, just basically with the community college, what was the thing that helped you the most about this? And what maybe can we improve upon as instructors?
Okay, I said getting to know my professors. I would say to improve the reading from personal experience. Just not reading a lot, but reading concisely. To know how to weave the material back to what's in the text. Or teach from that and then help students weave it into the text.
Yeah. What to say about Co-Lin? Everything that really went wrong at Co-Lin was a product of myself. You know, my first semester, as Scafidel has often called it, was scorched earth. I pretty much failed every single class I was enrolled in, got my GPA down below, I think even a 1.0. I think it was pretty bad. But that was all my fault. And the couple of years that I was here, I really liked all my classes. I adored all my professors, Scafidel included. Not so much Stovall. But
You dropped me twice.
I did do that. No, you kicked me out once, and then I dropped you the second time.
Absences will get you every time.
That's true. But I loved my time here, and if there's one negative thing I can say, it's an overarching theme in all educational, surroundings is while we're holding the students accountable for their actions and the way that they're learning and stuff like that, I think there also needs to be a bigger microscope on the teachers. Like as they said, those teachers that will let you get away with more than they're supposed to, and that will, kind of baby you. I think that needs a closer look, because you're not going to get that when you transfer or if you graduate and move somewhere else.
It's amazing that students are saying we need to be harder.
So y'all come to the A&T classes and tell all the students?
I would say to teachers, and don't throw tomatoes at me, but if you ask a question, and I know you do discussion questions, and you do as well. If you ask a discussion question and a student does not give you what you want, pound them in the dirt. I mean, because that's what's ahead of you. And I say that not to scare anyone, but but explain why. Okay, you got this wrong because of this. That's one thing. They'll tell you why, but if you don't do what they ask, you can hang it up, whether it's on a paper, test, whatever.
Okay, we're right at halfway, and I'm going to open up the floor. But I have one more question I want you guys to respond to. Greatest, just brag on yourself a little bit. Greatest personal achievement in the last semester, and maybe the greatest challenge. All right, the greatest struggle and the greatest achievement.
I would say both would be the research paper I did. It was such a big assignment, such a big grade, and she really built it up. I'd never done anything quite like it before. It was very challenging. A couple of long nights and things like that, just trying to get to a transition point, even so I wouldn't be stopping it at this point. And I have to refresh myself the next day. I wound up making an A on the paper, and I was more proud of that A. That class was pretty tough. I was more proud of that paper than any other grade of the semester. So that was probably my biggest challenge and biggest success.
I would say for me, the foreign language and then this one history course, from what I've heard from everyone, there was one guy, he was a non-traditional student. He was a sixth-year senior. He said this is the hardest 300 level course he's ever taken, and he's taken a lot of them. But right around midterms, we had our French midterm was 2 parts: speaking, you standing up in front of the class, speaking French, and a conversation. I'll put it like that, I failed that part with like a 48. And then I made a 70 on the written part. I was this close to dropping the class, but I just buckled down for the next, God, how long would it have been? The next 9 weeks till finals, and just studied French just as hard as I could. And I came out of that class somehow with an A. I don't know how. Because on every test leading up to the final, I made like high 70s, low 80s on. But show up, you get a participation grade just for an attendance grade, which is like 130 points. You get participation grade if you're prepared and you do your ask questions, things like that. Going and see the professors, and it's, that's brownie points. I saw the tutors every day. That got me kind of, I don't want to say brownie points, but they know I'm trying. And as in the history or the writing would have been going into the final in this one history class. I had like a 85. That's that, which is they do 10 points. That's a midway B. And I was okay. I'm just gonna accept the B, because there's no way I'm gonna pull my grade up 5 points on the final. Like just judging from everything I've done for this class, I've made a B on. Every single paper had been a B, other than the very last one, which we got back the day of the final. So when I checked my grades the week after, it's an A in that class, and I have no idea how. So that would have been my greatest achievement.
For me, I think my greatest achievement would probably be the midterm that I had for my introduction to media writing class. And it was like this huge, big thing that I was not expecting. It was like a 4 or 5 part midterm, and it was like 2 sessions in class of writing various different news stories, and then another take-home session that I want to say it broke it down into 3 or 4 parts of, go out, talk to people, basically create a story out of thin air, because that's what you're having to do a lot when you're in that field. And I was woefully underprepared. I was just like, what am I even doing in this class? And I just buckled down. I went to talk to teachers. I got advice. Because you can't become that 1 out of 100 by yourself. Nobody's ever done it. And I think I made it out of that class with a B, and probably the happiest I've ever been.
Good deal. All right, well, I'd like to open up the floor. So if you would have a specific question, just make sure that you let us know, who you'd like to answer that, or the whole panel. So who'd go first? Okay.
Nathan, you were saying that you had to read a certain amount each week for each class. How many classes would you say would be a good amount at one time, so you don't overwhelm yourself with having too many books to read? What would be a good?
That's just from one semester of experience. What I would do is I would figure out how hard the classes are, because one of my history classes, it wasn't easy, but the information, she tied it well into what was in the book, the lectures, and vice versa. While in the other history class, or in the other class, it was two opposites. Like, the book is completely different from the lectures, and the paper is completely different from both of them. I wouldn't know how many to say. I wouldn't go over more than 4, because you would be reading a lot each week. So that's 4 different books each week, maybe, and then having to separate that information so it's not all tied together.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, who else do we have? All right. You there.
How many classes did you guys take, credit hour-wise last semester?
I took 3 history classes and 1 German class, which included a lab, so that was 13. This semester, I'm taking 4 history classes with a German class and a lab, so I'll be taking 16 this semester.
Let's see. Last semester, I did intensive French, which is 1 and 2 in one semester. That's 6 hours of French, 2 upper level history courses, and then 101 philosophy. So I had the 101 in there, my prereq. Next semester I have another 6 hours of French, 3 and 4, plus 3 upper level history courses.
For me, last semester, I think I was on the lower end. I think it was about just 13 hours for me, just with the various introductory classes to the mass communication. But this semester, now that I've transferred over to a theater degree, I want to say I'm taking 15, 16 hours. And I'm also putting in some gen ed work, just sciences and stuff that I didn't quite get, and like sociology and stuff like that. But it's all about just learning how difficult the classes are going to be and what you're capable of. If you need to go to school for 6 years, go to school for 6 years. Don't try to cram it and fit that traditional schedule.
Yeah, but what Logan was saying in previous, one of the other questions was a big change. Here I was used to doing like 19 somewhere, the maximum amount of hours I could take, because all the bands, all that stuff, and then still being a full-time student. There is really no way to do that. I cannot think of a feasible way to do that and come out with all A's. To take, just load up on hours, even if it's 101 stuff.
Yeah, my last semester here, I took 21 hours. Came out with A's and B's. So, but there's no way. I mean, my advisor told me, she said, I wouldn't even suggest taking 18.
Yeah.
So, and that was my advisor, who is a graduate teacher, Civil War teacher. So, I eased into it. I wanted to ease in and get my feet off the ground. And so I'll hit the ground running Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, what we hear from science students that come here to Co-Lin and go to four-year university is that their teachers and classmates treat them differently because they're transfer students. And they assume that since they were at community college, well, they didn't learn what they should
the what I was talking about earlier, that deal that how we're setting up a class that helps transfer students, because you are a freshman. Typically, a freshman when you go in, you're still learning the ropes, and I mean, sit down with the teacher. This is one of the professors I had. I went and had lunch with her one day because after class she'd go ahead and have lunch, which is in the building that I lived in, and we'd jab jaw, talk back and forth, and she kind of realized, okay, he knows what he's talking about. It is like what you were talking about. There is this stigma attached that you don't know what you're doing, and that's one of the classes Ole Miss is thinking of starting next year. It's going to be a 300 level accredited course. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's one this including I and a section of other transfer students are helping set up is how to soften that blow. And then how to, even having like a separate admissions for transfer students, they're thinking of doing that.
I did not have I didn't have a bad experience with that. But, my main goal when I go into any class is to get to know my professor. I did that here at Co-Lin. I did that this past semester at Ole Miss. That to me is important. That whether it's stopping by their office, having lunch, seeing them on the sidewalk, and just chatting for 5 minutes, that helps a lot. All my teachers, knew who I was after this semester, and as the semester went on, and I didn't have any trouble.
I've never really had trouble in the sciences. I took weather and climate last semester, and I pretty much felt like I fitted in, felt like I was getting the same treatment as all the other students. But it was a big lecture class. It wasn't a smaller classroom size, so I just don't have that experience.
Yep. How long would you say it took you to adjust to the new way of doing things?
Several weeks. Several weeks. The first week, pretty rough. And I came home for Labor Day, and boy, it was a long drive back. But second week was a little better. Third week was a little better. Fourth week a little better. By around midterms, I was fine. I was beginning to like it and bought into the process. So, a few weeks, 5-6 weeks, to really just get in there and get a schedule. Once I had something to do, I didn't have time to sit around and feel sorry for myself. I had stuff to do. So, a few weeks, maybe first week may be rough, but it goes away, I promise.
What helps you in that process when you do have those doubts? Who did you lean on, to come to blow up and
Sure.
stay?
Well, I talked to you a lot. I called Mr. Stovall and talked to him. Family was very helpful, but I really just had to make up my mind that, okay, I'm here. I'm here. I got to do it. And I mean, because first week I was ready to pack up and hit the road, but I stuck with it, and it was great. But don't be afraid to call Shu or Mr. Stovall or whatever teacher you're close to here and say, hey, I'm having a tough time. I need a pep talk, and somebody will kick you in the rear and get you going.
I would say right before Thanksgiving, which that's a long period of just self-wallow and self-pity. That is a stretch. I remember one weekend, I got out of class Friday at 2, and I had to stay the weekend to write a paper. I don't know if you have ever gone 3 straight days without talking to a person. Has anybody ever done that? Because you will go crazy. And one of the that class that I'm in that's non-accredited, as far as structuring on how to soften the blow for transfer students, was they said that transfer students usually have like the biggest dropout rate because they just silently bleed to death. That was the word he used. And they have all these counseling centers that if you don't know what to do, you go see them. Even if you don't like it, they will help set you up. How can we get you in classes that you do like, or can we help you transfer to another university that you want to go to? They will do that.
For me, I'd say somewhere around midterms. But I mean, it was a little rough because it was a whole brand new situation. I had, a pretty easy schedule, 13 hours. But I also had 2 hours of choir every day, Monday through Friday. I was working a new job, and I was doing extracurricular stuff, helping out with a local theater. And it was just, I was like, where do people find the time and the will and the humanity to work a 40-hour week? I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. But eventually you buy into the process, like Patton said, and it becomes routine. It becomes one of the easiest things in the world to get up at 8 o'clock, have a cup of coffee, and get to class. And just stick with it.
It's a great word, routine. That's what I had to get, was a routine.
Don't be afraid of power naps. That's a good one. Seriously, do not be a word of advice is I can't see how people stay up all night the week of finals and study and then go in and take them. Get your sleep, get your 8 hours, and then if you have a break in the day, power nap. I would sleep in the philosophy building.
What's the Seinfeld episode? I think Da Vinci takes a 30-minute nap every 2 hours. That's all the sleep he gets.
Yeah, I forget those days. We some of us took a trip to look at the writing center at State, and we're walking through their library and the writing center, and I look and there's these couches, and there's 2 or 3 people crashed out, and I'm like, that was me. I remember those days. We have time for a few more questions.
Do y'all know of any organizations that kind of made it easier to get used to it, or is there any at all? Maybe even a class that helped? Just curious.
Like I said, I know Ole Miss this coming fall, they'll have that 300 level class for transfer students, which they're hoping to get every university to do that. I don't know how that's going to go over. Let's see. I also know Ole Miss has this thing in the library or in the student union where you go. They'll have video games, board games. Played Risk one night with some people. It took about 3 hours. Yeah.
The game's still not over.
Just don't be afraid to talk to people.
Yeah. Ole Miss is big on fraternities. Everybody's in a fraternity or sorority, except for me. I go to bed at 9:30 every night, and I'm not a partier, so I didn't want to have something else to do. I already had enough to do, so it's like Nathan said, just talk to people, and get to know your teachers, and with the full load of classes, you don't have time for much else.
At Co-Lin, they offer a lot of alternatives like click classes and online classes to make some of the classes easier. That way, if you're not a particular major, you don't have to stress over it. Was there any type of those classes that you took here that you really regretted taking once you got to a four-year university?
The only click class I ever took was, I don't think it was a click class, was it? What are they, Maymasters, the ones you do in the very beginning of summer? I took English 2 with, I think it was Silveri. That was probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. You kind of have to get to know yourself, how you learn. And a crash course in how to write papers, I guess, was what I needed. It's just all about figuring out how you need to go about college, And if click classes don't work for you, stay as far away from it as you can. If they do work for you, take as many as you can. It's just kind of that simple.
I think the only, wasn't a click course, it was a night course, geography, but I don't really, no answer. Yeah.
I never took a click class here. Never take a click class anywhere for that matter, but I did take an online class here. It's my first and last online class.
Yeah.
I had American Literature 1 in class, and it just didn't make. Loved the class. So I wanted to take American Literature 2. Signed up for it, didn't make. Got thrown into an online class, and I hated it because I like this, human interaction. We can talk, we can see each other. You don't have that with an online class, and I did not like it. So I haven't taken one since.
What would you say is the best style of living arrangement, like dorm or apartment?
Yeah, I have a townhouse about 3 minutes from campus. It's nice. I'm fortunate enough that I don't have a roommate because I wanted my privacy. So Oxford's pretty good because it's not a lot of crime, things like that. It's a good city. So I've never had any trouble, and I love where I live. I mean, if I want to be on the couch and watch TV, I can. If I want to go to bed at 7 o'clock, I can. Whatever, most of the time you don't have the luxury of doing that, but I love where I live.
I live, oh my God, it's a hard dorm to describe. I can't compare anything to it. But I don't have a roommate, but I have like 4 suite mates and that whole deal. And I live on campuses, apparently. But if anybody's going to live in the dorms, I would suggest checking out which dorm building you're thinking of staying in, and visiting it, and actually going in the rooms and everything like that. So I know Keenan, every time there's a ball game, it's like somebody breaks the sinks off the walls or something like that. Or can. like one of my friends in there, every time that happens, they break the sinks off the walls.
College, man. Well, very much like Patton, every time I'm staying at my chateau and I step out on the veranda. No, I look down at the plebeians below me, and I think they look like ants. No, I live in Hattiesburg. There's nothing quite so grand. I live next to the interstate. In a room with 3, or in a house with 3 people I don't really know. I dodge bullets on my way out to the car. So,
Hey, who invited the theater major?
But no, it's fine. I mean, definitely don't do like I did. I looked at my house once, moved in the next week, because, as always, I made the decision to move to Southern at the very last minute. I think I moved in maybe 2 weeks before school started. So don't do that. Just, shop around a little bit, see, if you've got steady income, see, what the different prices are, and try and, find the best life for you, because you're going to be living there for a little while, hopefully. Hopefully I can find another place. Nah.
Last question, Ms. Clauber.
I had a student tell me once that they were surprised at how much more leniency they got at Co-Lin, say on a makeup test policy, than they got when they hit a university. Did you find that to be true when you went to Ole Miss or Southern?
Pretty much short of a gunshot wound, which I've got much experience in living in Hattiesburg. No, pretty much south of that, you're not going to find much leniency unless you notify your teachers like a month in advance, and then you're probably just going to have to take the test early. There's not really a late makeup, in a university scale.
I know for the essays and stuff, like in class, if you miss it. Like in one class we had like 15 minutes to answer this one question. 15 minutes to answer pre-prepared questions that he'd given us or posted on Blackboard like months in advance. And the readings are months in advance, so you know what to expect for that one day and 1 week. And if you miss it and come in late, oh well, you can't make it up. Test, I don't remember anybody really ever missing a test, but I know there was one girl in one of my classes, and I felt so bad for her. She misread the directions, and she only answered one essay question instead of 2 of them. Instantly a 75, and she was already at like an F. So, and this was midterms, and the professor was like, "Oh well, should I explained it in the beginning of class, and you missed that." So,
I had in my World War II class, I had, as I said, 4 papers. There's not really many tests. It's a lot of writing papers and things. So, but I never missed a test, so I can't attest to that. But papers and any kind of assignments, in that class, it was pretty cut and dry. You knew when you had to do it. You had the assignment at the beginning of the semester for all 4 of your papers. And, if you turned it in after the date, it went down letter grade, until you got to an F, and then, that's it. My African American history class was if you missed an assignment, if it's due on January 17th at 10 o'clock and you turn it in at 10:01, it's a 0. You can beg, scream, cry. It's not gonna be any good. So, and that class was crazy because she was brand new teacher. She was, and I guess that's my own stupid fault for taking it, but it got better as the semester went on. But she was kind of disorganized, so that kind of put us at a disadvantage. But there's not much leniency there.
Do you mind if I ask
Sure.
a question of those? Just to kind of sum it up, what is the best piece of advice that you can think of to give potential transfers about coming to a university? Just like one sentence.
Go up there.
oh man, the windbag gets asked to sum something up in one sentence. Come back to me.
So pass it on to the theater major. Yeah, he'll be concise.
We have 2 minutes, and I want to give Dr. Shu a chance. So.
I'd say, like I've said a couple of times before, get to know your teachers, get to know the people, get to know the campus.
That.
Thank you guys for coming. This was a great start. Notice to the other Centurions, this is what we want. We want subject, and this is perfect. I had to rely on these guys which have done this process before. It's not just coming up here and giving a presentation, and it's not all fun and games, and it can ask for some, controversial stuff is okay to talk about. I think that's part of this. So think about topics, and if you're not in the Centurions, if you're a faculty member or staff member, think about presenting. This is a chance. This is a student forum. Please, it's so vibrant. I can't thank you guys enough.
Actually, there's something. They have a history club up there at Oxford, and I told them about the what is it? The sponsor. He's like, oh, the salons. That's a great idea. So,
Well, it's fun. It's fun for me. I don't know. I think it's a great opportunity. Co-Lin is so much of what you put into it. It can be just, hey, what do I gotta do? What do I gotta do to get my grade? Or you guys can just squeeze it for everything it's worth. I mean, just get everything and then go on. Life's about slaying dragons, and facing those fears and confidence. A lot of what I'm gaining is the confidence. Someone to call you. I mean, I was looking at my parents. I wanted to quit. I'm like, Dad, they're on me. They yell at me all the time. He laughed. He said, look, it's when they don't yell at you anymore. When they're not pushing you. That means they've given up. So just because someone's pushing you and asking you to do something, and then call us, I guess. You guys that move on, that's why we're here. I think, with coaching, I don't know, maybe we need to do a little bit more coaching instead of teaching. Because coaching, it's about pushing you guys to your best. Academically, socially, you name it. Because I've heard this from other people. I've had guys call me from Alabama and all these wonderful schools where we send these athletes. They're like, I want to quit. I miss Co-Lin. You're like, what? But it's about the newness and the change. And anyway, I'm just so proud of you guys. And it's amazing to see your growth. And this panel, thank you so much. You did a wonderful job as a moderator. That was very good. Again, we'll send news message about the next one, but thank you so much for attending. It means a lot to us. And that's it. We'll meet next week. Centurions. Good job. Thank you, Jason, for filming this. We'll have
Give you a
that
hard
available.
time.